The taglist behavior has the following effect. When you click on any of the rows within the web part, it's going to dump, or we are going to publish more or less a predefined list of tags to all of the trends on that web part. That predefined list is going to be specific to the column you clicked on. Now, how do we actually define that list? It's actually defined in the module database, and I'll show you that in just a second. But let me demonstrate before we go much further. I think it's much easier to demonstrate than to explain. If you recall our previous example, when I would click on any of these customer IDs, that hyperlink behavior initiated a hyperlink. It goes to a specific document library. Now, with a simple change in configuration, watch what I can do. I'm going to change this so that instead of going to that other table configuration, the one called MyConfig with hyperlink, now we've got a new RtTable configuration. This is the table configuration that goes to a tag list. So it doesn't really change the look much, but watch the behavior now. Behavior is going to be completely different. When I click on either of these columns, it's going to publish a list of tags to any of the trends on this display. So I click on this column right here, and look at what happened. Down here, we see a list of tags that are stored in the module database has actually been published to that trend. Now, if I click on this column, it's a different column. When I click here, we're going to see a different set of tags. Now, it doesn't matter which row I'm clicking on here. See, this is designed so that you get different behaviors with the rows. With the columns, as you can see. So that's different than, for example, the tree view control. So we've given you another option. Sometimes people want to specify lists of tags to pass to trends. This is giving you one more way to do that. Now, before we actually look at how to configure that tag list, let's look at the other way of passing a list of tags to a trend to distinguish this from using the tag list so you can know when to choose which. This is an example of that other method. This is using the RtTreeView web part. As I choose the different nodes of this RtTreeView, we're taking the list of aliases that are in the module database associated with each node, and we're passing that list of aliases to the trend. Now, this is different than what we're talking about with tag lists. Again, with the tag lists, what we're doing is we're assigning to a column within a table a list of tags that are configured using that tag list option. So let me show you an example of why you might want to do it that way. Here I've got a mock-up of, well, what you might see in as a display in RtWebParts. We've got a table in which we're looking at different parts of your process, sulfuric acid units, specialty intermediates, etc. And each different unit has different vessels. And within each vessel, there's certain things we want to look at: temperature, pressure, and level. Well, what I can do with the tag list function is configure tag lists such that when I click on any one of these columns, we send a list of tags to the trend. So when I click on column A, we'll send the temperature, pressure, and level from column A, or for column A, over to the trend to trend. If I click on tank 1, we'll send the same list of, or a list of different aliases to the trend, so that we can see now column by column we can choose what to send on to that trend. So it's simply a matter of choosing whether you want to display this in a tree view form or in a column form. We support both ways of passing lists of tags to a trend. So let's take a look at how that was done. If I go back in here, well, let's go back to, I guess we should go back to basics here, all the way back to the module database. Let me open up this. This is the module database that we're working with. And in this module database we have, it's essentially an asset database that defines my assets. And within reactor section we have a reactor 1 that has the following aliases: concentration, level, and temperature. And level, for example, points to this tag right here, U3 L1313.pv. Now compare that to reactor 2. Reactor 2 has the same aliases, so that's actually pointing to a different pi tag, U4. Well, what does this have to do with anything? Well, I'm going to configure an RtTable configuration that passes all the aliases listed under reactor 1 and reactor 2. I'm going to do that through configuration. So let me go back to my Let's go back to my configuration screen here. There we go. And here's the configuration we want. It's this my table config with Taglist. Now if we look at this, look at this. If you notice, we've got columns here that, just like all of the other table configurations, you can configure specific tag lists for each column. So this tag list is going to point to my tag list R1. Okay, my tag list R1 is actually a tag list that I previously defined in this section right here. So as you can see, if you recall, I mentioned earlier in the class that we would revisit this later on. Well, this is now when we're going to get into that. So I have two tag lists configured in here for this exercise, an R1 for reactor 1 and an R2 for reactor 2. Once I've defined those tag lists, I then come into this configuration and I say customer ID goes with R1, company name goes with R2. Now let's go see what's in Taglist R1 and R2. These were called my Taglist R1 and R2. And here they are. If you look, this is where we define in the module database the module path whose tag aliases we're going to retrieve. In this case, it just goes to a reactor section, reactor 1. So the way I would select that is just by choosing select, and it copies that into that field right there. So that's how I define these tag lists. So it's there's a lot of links here. We define the tag list. We then define the table configuration. And the table configuration that I chose was, here we go, the one with the tag list. Yeah, within this table configuration again, we specify which column sends which tag list. So this customer ID sends this tag list. The big finish, of course, is to come out into your the web part here. Let me scroll up just a bit. And within this web part, this is where we tie it all together and use that format, RtTable format called the myTableConfig with Taglist. And of course the end result is clicking on one column sends one tag list, clicking on another column sends a different tag list. There we go.